Welcome back to the channel. This is the Earth Science Classroom. This is me drawing out the carbon cycle on tracing paper as part of the Biogeochemical cycle series, where I look at and draw as an example all different cycles, including the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, phosphorus, sulfur, and water cycle. So this is basically a teacher's key that the students can use during their project if need be as a point of reference. And I basically draw out these cycles with all of the sinks and pools and fluxes discussed, and there we start with the atmospheric CO2, about 0.04%, and then we look at the oceanic chemical reactions of the dissolved CO2 going into the salt water, and then chemically reacting with water and the oxygen and hydrogen to make carbonic acid, which is going to lower the pH. So we can discuss ocean acidification. We can also discuss the process and formation of carbon-based rock layers like limestone and dolostone, and looking at coalification, looking at the burial and sedimentation of the carbon into the lithosphere and the upper crust as one of the major, if not the biggest, carbon sink. And then we can look at the element of weather and erosion and the process of putting more carbon into the oceans through the dissolution of chemical weathering and mechanical weathering of rocks, and looking at then the terrestrial component, whereby you have the volcanic eruptions, adding that natural amount of carbon through the greenhouse gases and water vapor, just a natural process, and then looking at the general ocean with the biological pumps and how the marine organisms work to uptake and dissolve the carbon, and then death and decay is basically a source or pump of moving that carbon. So looking at the trees and biomass vegetation, looking at photosynthesis of taking in that CO2 from the atmosphere and using it in the chemical reaction with sunlight to make glucose and sugars to produce their own food. So looking at the producers and the autotrophs, looking at the decomposition of organic matter, which contains carbon. Carbon basically is that crux that makes it organic versus inorganic, and looking at the, again, dolostone, limestone, and the key or major sedimentary rocks, which are the main source or sink of carbon on this planet. We can also discuss the activity of humans, putting more carbon into the atmosphere and into the cycle through the additional use and burning and extraction and mining of fossil fuels for energy requirements, and the release of CO2 through that vessel or that activity. Then just basically summarize the sinks of this cycle, and there you have it, a complete carbon cycle.